Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to extend a very warm welcome to each one of you at the nice global conclave from the labs of the beautiful Himalayas, where the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement is located. The think tank was established in the month of February in the year 2016. It undertakes independent research in the field of international relations, foreign policy, security studies, and development. NICE has four research centers: China Studies, Neighborhood Studies, Non-Traditional Security Studies, and Security and Strategic Studies. The institute focuses on 8 research topics: climate change and energy, global governance, sustainable development and smart cities, refugee and migration, China's Belt and Road Initiative, border and transboundary water politics, Indo-Pacific affairs, disaster management, and international economy and development. Previously, NICE has had the opportunity to host distinguished speakers from all around the globe.
It was a great pleasure inviting me to speak here at NICE.
It's a real pleasure to be able to speak with all of you.
But thank you anyway, and I certainly admire the work that you're doing.
I'm very happy to be with you all.
NICE Global Conclave is the flagship event of Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. The theme of the 3-day conference is Connecting Nepal to the World, with the aim to bring leaders, diplomats, business leaders, and scholars from all over the globe. The objective of the conclave is to introduce Nepal to the world and at the same time update the Nepalese policy makers and experts about the fast changing geopolitics, which will help Nepal reshape its foreign policy to achieve its national goal. This is the H session of the conference, and this session is supported by United Service Institution of India. To chair and moderate this session, it is a real pleasure to have with us Lieutenant General G.S. Katoch. Lieutenant General Ghanshyam Singh Katoch has held a number of prestigious command and staff appointments in his service. He retired in March 2016 as Director General Strategic Planning. Presently, he is the head editorial team at the United Service Institution of India, New Delhi. Without any further ado, I request the chair to take over.
Thank you so much for that very generous introduction. And before I start off, let me also just mention one fact about the think tank that I belong to, the United Service Institution of India. That it's India's oldest think tank, established in 1870, and last year we celebrated 150th year. Of course, amidst the COVID, so the celebrations were a little muted. And of course, we are starting off now session H of the NICE conclave. And the topic for this session is enhancing cooperation between the BBIN countries. To give us our views on this subject, we have a very eminent panel. We have Ambassador Farooq Chauhan, former Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, Lieutenant General K.J. Singh, former Indian Army Commander. He commanded the Western Army Command. Major General A.K.M. Abdur Rahman, who is a former Director General of the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies. Major General Binod Basniat, who is a strategic analyst on South Asian affairs from Nepal. And Mr. Lobsang Dorji, who had not joined us as yet, but I'm sure he will join us, who's an associate lecturer at the Sherwoodse College, University of Bhutan. Of course, the brochure that the NICE had sent out had a very detailed introduction to all the speakers, but I've been given directions that to save time, I should not, repeat that. And hence, people who are listening in, they would be advised to look at that, and you will find that each one of the speakers has got a very, very distinguished career, a very, very solid background to talk on this particular subject. And without further ado, I will follow the sequence of speakers generally the way it was there on the flyer. So we'll have first Ambassador Farrukh Chauhan, followed by Lieutenant General KJ Singh, then Major General Rahman, Major General Basniat, and Mr. Lobsang Dorji. And I'm sure by that time he would be in. And the format that I have been told is that you should stick to about 8 to 9 minutes in your presentation or the talk that you are giving. And thereafter, at the end of that, we will take on any questions which come in. And I would also have a couple of questions to ask the panelists, distinguished panelists. So without further ado, may I request Ambassador Farrukh Chauhan to give his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
At the outset, I would like to thank NIES for inviting me to this annual conclave. I'm extremely happy to share my views with you regarding enhancing cooperation among BBIN countries. By a happy coincidence, I was there at the birth of BBIN. This came out of a ministerial decision taken in May 1996 that resulted in a formal decision taken at the Male Summit in early 1997, and that was followed by the first meeting of the 4 foreign secretaries of BBIN, namely Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. It took place in Kathmandu in May of 1997. That meeting was supported by the Asian Development Bank. The model which we used at that time was the Mekong Delta project that was promoted by the Asian Development Bank as the ideal format for the 4 BBIN countries to follow. Unfortunately, the initial enthusiasm for BBIN, which in its initial formative period was known as the Growth Quadrangle, then ran into some difficulties. I think India had some second thoughts about it. And then there was also, we were planning to do this within the SAARC framework, which allows 2 or more countries to work together on specific projects. So there was also objection to the Growth Quadrangle by Pakistan. So this resulted in, for an extended period of time, the Asian Development Bank undertook studies and supported a framework of consultations involving the business community of the 4 countries. More recently, this proposal was revived, and all the 4 countries today now support the BBIN framework. The focus of BBIN has really zeroed in on 3 very specific areas: energy, connectivity, and trade and investment. I think we have seen substantial progress in the area of connectivity and energy cooperation. And I would also add trade and investment bilaterally between India and Bangladesh, and also in the case of India and Bhutan, and also India and Nepal. The challenge has been to really bring all 4 countries as active participants into this process. So the 3 key initiatives that have been taken, really, one was the Motor Vehicles Registration Act, and we got an agreement initially of all the 4 BBIN countries, but as is well known, Bhutan has opted not to ratify this agreement. There is a discussion that we should move forward initially without Bhutan, and that perhaps Bhutan will join later. Similarly, in the case of energy cooperation, there have been discussions about trilateral cooperation involving Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and India. But the format that this has taken is that Bangladesh would like to import hydroelectric power from Bhutan and from Nepal. So the idea is to develop and design trilateral agreements between Nepal, India, and Bangladesh, and between Bhutan, India, and Bangladesh. These discussions are underway. I think we have seen substantial progress in connectivity between Bangladesh and India, as I mentioned. What the challenge now is to bring Nepal and Bhutan into this framework of connectivity, both by rail as well as by road. Whereas there have been agreements in principle, the challenge today, as I see it, is implementation. Particularly across the Chicken's Neck. We understand India has some sensitivities on grounds of security. So we need to look at ways of moving forward in the area of connectivity so that Nepal and Bhutan are more integrated with the transportation network across India into Bangladesh. I see enormous prospects for cooperation in the future, but I would say that, and I'm concluding here, and I hope we can take up some of these points in due course. We need to see the business community more proactive. One challenge is the fact that we have 4 countries with, I would say, substantial differences in terms of the size of their economies. But the whole idea here was to focus on geographical contiguity. So when we speak of India, we are really speaking of West Bengal and the Indian Northeast as the major beneficiaries of this process. So I hope in our discussions, we can look at ways and means of taking these various initiatives forward. I'll stop here now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shobhan. Thank you so much for this very short and crisp discourse. And you mentioned about the sensitivity of the Chicken Neck area. And of course, our next speaker, who prior to becoming the Army Commander, Western Command, had looked after that particular area as part of his duties as the Corps Commander there. During his discourse, maybe he will throw some light on that. And as you very rightly brought out, that West Bengal and India's Northeast are actually the very major beneficiaries of this particular initiative, and hence the importance of the initiative being successful. So with this, over to Lieutenant General K.J. Singh.
Good morning, everybody. And let me use an expression which probably is understood, hopefully, in the other countries which are part of BBIN, Suprabhat. We are looking at East, we are talking East, and we are acting East. So here we are talking to firstly a very eminent panel. So I am very humbled to be in their presence. I am grateful to the chair, General Katoch, who's been my very valuable colleague in my service career, has always helped me along. And above all, we are grateful to NIES and USI, which is hosting this session. So with these words of gratitude, let me start off the discussion. I'll be failing in my duty if I didn't thank Ambassador Farukh Subhan, because he set the agenda. And since he was there in the inaugural deliberations and setting up of this body, so he was probably, may not be planned, but best suited to give the context of historical emergence of this grouping. So now as a soldier, let me do a little bit of reality check, because there is an institution which came up 15 years, nearly 15 years back. It is a quadrilateral, and there have been attempts sometimes to attach Sri Lanka and Maldives with it. And now there is even talk that better than Sri Lanka and Maldives, probably one should attach Thailand and Myanmar, which are more sort of relevant to this kind of connectivity or corridors. So whether this quadrilateral becomes a hexagon or not, but there is a need to do a reality check, because 15 years down the line, we have very little to show in front. See, there are other organizations which were there. They have managed to set up their headquarters. They have more institutionalized discussions. Here, the joint working groups are meeting very irregularly. They're meeting after a gap of 3 to 4 years. Last time they met was, I think, in 2016, if I'm not wrong. And diplomats are gifted, and so is our Ambassador Subhan, who can help you to see light at the end of very dark tunnel. And he has actually, because one should not lose hope. After all, we have to work in that direction. So what is this hesitancy all about? Basically, this feeling that India is a huge, big country, and there's always this certain desire, certain expectancy from India. There is certain amount of apprehension, but we are very lucky that Bangladesh is also emerging as a tiger economy. And Bangladesh is today in a process, in a situation to give foreign exchange aid to Sri Lanka for their currency swap agreement. So if Bangladesh is gaining this kind of heft, and today economical heft is a very major issue. So it is hoped that Bangladesh will, firstly, it has excellent relations with India now, will help to balance out this so-called fear of India dominating it. And now that India is once again starting to engage with Pakistan, there is also hope that India is able to convince Pakistan that acting east is something totally different from our overall relationship under SAARC or maybe even BIMSTEC. Because even Pakistan would realize that while they were attached to a country called as, they called it East Pakistan, but then geographical compulsions, language, culture, it was a very artificial construct. So India is also a huge, big country. It has got its own dimensions, and East has got its own relevance. I do take Ambassador Subhan's point that while it is meant for Northeast, unfortunately, I'll be a little critical, it is all controlled from Delhi. So there is a need to take counsel from what he's saying. Is there a need to steer this from the Northeastern Council, or at least give the ownership of this to DONER, Department of Northeast, give it to them? They broadly structure all articulations and discussions, and Foreign Ministry keeps an overwatch, because Ambassador Subhan will also, he is himself a Foreign Service official, He will also not like to give away his stuff so easily. But can this stuff within India get shared to the relevant department and steered from there? Now, India's major, see, two countries here are landlocked. They need the transit. They have some existing arrangements and they need to be improved. Coupled with this is a problem that Bhutan does not want to suddenly open up to outsiders. Bhutan follows an excellent logic of low impact, high value engagement. So what basically it means is, even in tourism, you allow a fixed number of tourists to come in, you charge them certain premium, and you preserve your ecosystem, your ecology, and do not get it ruined. We can do a comparison of, say, Gangtok and of Bhutan, and you will realize that in Gangtok, the number of tourists which we are trying to now learn from Bhutanese model. So there is, in such fragile kind of ecosystems, there is a need to regulate the number of people. So Bhutan's hesitancy is understood, but mechanisms have to be found to get over it. Because see, after all, the showpiece of this entire grouping, the motor vehicle agreement, is not getting fully operationalized. It is one thing to do it between three countries, but it is a huge, big achievement to have all four on board. So we hope we are able to get over it. I must also spend about 3-4 minutes, which I have now, on Siliguri corridor. See, like China has got this Malacca dilemma, India has got this corridor dilemma. This corridor does enhance vulnerability for India, though India has mechanisms. India has strategic storages. India has excellent relations with Bangladesh, and it is able to develop connectivity through Bangladesh. But India's desire is, and so of other countries is, that transit should convert into economic corridors. It should become friendship corridors. So India would like to use that. Siliguri is an excellent city, but underdeveloped city, not fully developed. If all four countries invest and take joint ownership of this famous construct, which was once rooted and discussed, that there is a need to have Phuentsholing, which is Jaigaon Phuentsholing complex in Bhutan, and Viratnagar in Nepal, Panchgad in Bangladesh, and Siliguri as a BBIN economic zone, and have Panchgad as the headquarter of BBIN. It's an excellent concept. It needs to be taken forward. Now, what does Siliguri offer? Siliguri has got tremendous avenues for education. You have hill schools in Darjeeling and Kalimpong. About 50% and more royalty and civil bureaucracy of Bhutan gets their education from there. You also have Manipal engineering and medical colleges, which are there in Sikkim. And there is North Bengal University. More universities can come up in collaboration and cooperation. That apart, there are excellent healthcare facilities. I know of Dr. Chang's hospital. There is medical can develop as a, today also a lot of patients from Bangladesh, Nepal and Bhutan come to Siliguri, come to Bagdogra airport, come to Siliguri and get treated over there. So healthcare or medical tourism is an excellent avenue which can be further developed. And it is also pharmacy. Yeah, the Sikkim has got excellent climate. There are existing units of Wockhardt and other pharmaceutical companies, so they can be also developed. And you have few other industries, like you have breweries, you have tea. So, and some I'm not so well up. Bhutan has got some breweries. Bhutan has got some industries linked with tourism. Similarly, Nepal can develop, and this economic zone must come up. There is no doubt about this. And this can give us a huge, big leg up. Disaster management is another thing which needs to be added to this package. Currently, it's not there, but it needs to be looked at, because these places have challenges in terms of disasters. There have been earthquakes, there are cyclones, and if we share resources, if we share knowledge, it would be an excellent idea. I would try and sum up to say that way forward is to develop container and rail-based connectivity, about which some talk is taking place. There is a need to have some inter-parliamentary groups and chambers to interact more sort of formally. Get observers like Myanmar and Thailand, make it a hexagonal kind of an arrangement. And can we develop a vaccine development facility? Sikkim gives excellent climate. There are pharmacies, pharmaceutical industries over there. Can it be ramped up to vaccine manufacture? And the last thing that I want to leave over here is that there is a great push from China to develop connectivity in this area. Bullet train is coming up to Ningxi, and there is connectivity being developed to Nepal. But allow me to submit it's an artificial kind of connectivity. It'll all, their manufacturing and everything would start from their coastal region, eastern coastal townships, and from there it has to come all the way. There are logistic challenges. Much better connectivity can be developed here. Is there a point in looking at BBB W concept, which has been recently mooted, building back better world, which was mooted by Biden and European Council, to convince them to fund some connectivity projects here? Because even Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh will realize that strategic autonomy can only take place if you do not fully bank on China. I have nothing against China. They are an emerging power, but Hambantota and few other examples must throw up question marks. Connectivity development has to be bottom up, has to be driven by the demand over here, and has to be owned by people of that region. And that certainly is not the case in the connectivity which is being developed by China in this region. With this, I thank once again General Katoch and my fellow panelists. And if there are any questions later, I'll try and take them up. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, General KJ Singh. Thank you for that discourse. And of course, you brought out certain points, or I would say you threw light on points which are existing, but which miss our focus, because we get too carried away by the MVA, which is of course a very, very important thing, but we can't let it be the only thing of BBIN. So, when you talked about some initiatives to make BBIN a little more concrete concept, like, a headquarter for the BBIN, medical tourism, disaster relief, focus on that also within this, construct, because that particular area, as you very rightly brought out, does see a number of natural disasters, and it does need better coordination, which can come through this platform. Thank you so much. And now I will request General Abdur Rahman to give his presentation. Over to General Abdur Rahman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everybody. Especially, I don't know how to address my teacher and professor and Ambassador Farsovan sir. So only thing that I can say is Assalamu alaikum and good to see you after a long time. And for the other panelists and also for the people who are listening to me, let me also confess it is very difficult to speak in the same panel where Farooq Subhan sir is there, because there are places where I don't agree, but I don't dare to say that. But with his permission, I will be a little critical to some points. Anyway, I will start from where Jal Singh has ended. He brought the issues of China. Actually, this is the main problem according to my understanding. Now, if you talk about the region, you see our region is it has a strong demand for greater integration, regional integration, and it has emerged as one of the fastest growing region in the world. We have one of the largest, young population, and we are also having significant number of middle class consumers. But somehow, despite the fact that the World Bank South Asia Economic focuses that there will be about 7.2% of economic growth in 2021. Yet there are, problem, because despite being it's a dynamic region, regrettably South Asia is still one of the least integrated region or sub-region, what you call it. And because we have not made any progress, the inter-regional trade, which was around 5% about 15 years before, compared to 26% or more in the ASEAN countries, and our intra-regional trade is still 5% hovering around. We really couldn't make much of improvement. So this is one point where I'm a little, at times disappointed or depressed. Although Ambassador Farsovan sir, definitely, because he had been a career diplomat, and they will always speak positive. But we being a military people, we draw conclusion and we want, solution very fast. So by character, we are different. And we don't really wait so long to implement anything. We want very fast, implementation of the project. To my understanding, there had been a lot of initiative in our region. It started with SAARC. Then we had BCIMEC. Then we have, Jan Singh has said that we look east and connecting Myanmar and also Thailand with BBIN. It is already there. BIMSTEC is already there. Myanmar and Thailand is already with us, with India, Bangladesh, Nepal. These two countries are already there. And then we had the BCIMEC also. There were roadshow also. And then finally, nothing really satisfied the general people like us. We have not seen anything, visible the way we had been dreaming.
I'm in dialogue with a Bangladeshi, Nepali, and such like people, but couple thora zyada zaruri hai.
Sir, shall I continue?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that these are already there. These are already there. So we had even a Dhaka Kunming roadshow. We had also a roadshow from Bangladesh to Nepal. And then the concept of MBA, motor vehicle agreement, it was about to be ratified by all, but suddenly then I understand because of the reservation from the Bhutan, it has somehow, did not progress. But we really have not seen a completion of something very meaningful and concrete. And there had been discussion that there are substantial progress in the region on the trade, commerce, especially in the energy sector. But unfortunately, these are bilateral. India has this, trade and especially on the energy connectivity with Nepal. India has with Bhutan. India has with Bangladesh also. But unfortunately, you see, Bangladesh do not have with Nepal and Bhutan. And our government had been desperately, opening all doors. Our parliament have already given approval for using our port for all the four countries, all the three countries that we're talking about. In India, we talk about Bhutan, Nepal. So our door is always very, very open. And there is no need to justify how important is this connectivity. Just one example is that from the Tripura capital, Agartala, if you go to the Calcutta port, is about 1700 plus kilometer distance, which can be traveled by only 200 kilometers using the Chittagong port. And we say welcome, despite the fact that our Chittagong port is already overloaded because 90% of the trade goes through the Chittagong port. And still, we are open. We are trying to enhance the capacity. We are trying to enhance the facilities. We are trying to improve the management so that we can handle more container. But the mentality of our government, of our country is that, okay, we all want connectivity, we all want to develop together. But I understand, as I said, the main factor is the Siliguri corridor, and absolutely related to it is the perceived or real, whatever you call it. I am a military man, I don't like to put a full stop there. There is a strong sense of, speculation from India about China, that how China is going to behave and this and that. So what we see in this region is there is always a counterbalancing, there are always effort to bring more extra-regional power to integrating into the regional, countries or regional power. I am not very sure how this threat, it can only be, specifically addressed or said, because I'm not an Indian man, I'm a Bangladeshi man. I understand the threat, but how it can be, taken care cannot be prescribed by me, but it has to be prescribed by the India itself. And there are many factors within India which needs to be also considered. Their foreign policy, their perceived threat, their even domestic policy. And Jan Singh has very rightly said that, look, the problem is with these 7 states on the eastern states, but it is being controlled by the Delhi. So problem is on the east being dictated by the west, something like what we have seen when we were part of Pakistan. We used to live in the East Pakistan, but dictated by West Pakistan from there. So reality on the ground of the people's, and people's requirement was not taken care. So I think this is one point. But of course, India cannot ignore. I don't say that it has to, but if India makes an endeavor to see how it can balance the threat it feels from the regional power, and how much it can compromise, how much it can take care to give some space to implement the regional integration that we're talking. I will say that there are traditional threats, there are non-traditional threats. Traditional threats is always there for even any country of the world. Any country which has a standing army, definitely he feels there is a traditional threat. But the non-traditional threat that we're talking about has to be, it has to be minimized. And I'm very, I'm not very disappointed, but I'm a little in an urgency to see some kinds of, meaningful and visible improvement in the regional integration before I die. I had been telling this thing for a long, long time. I will close by saying one small incident. I attended a UNESCO conference in Delhi. So one of the participants was the chief of Pakistan Railway. So he sat with me in the breakfast table, and he was telling me that he is facing a problem because he did not submit the air ticket. So the host is not in a position to help him. So I said, what is the problem? He said, I have come by train. I have come from Punjab, So, and he narrated how much time it takes. You see, the Wagah railway station, and there is a village called, I forgot, which is very closest to the Wagah, opposite to the Wagah, there is a small village. The
Attari,
yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Attari. It takes not even 1 hour to take a goods from Attari to Wagah or vice versa. But you see, because of the absence of protocol in the name of security, I would say, I'm a little tired of the word hearing the security, because anything in that that railway chief says, sir, anything I take to connect in the name of security, it is being, disapproved. What we are living in the 21st century. We have so much of device to detect anything which involves which gives security problem. But still, in the name of security, we had this problem. But I think I'm very happy that I'm being a Bangladeshi. Proudly said, back in Sir said about 1997. That is the time there were some news whether Bangladesh should be giving transit facility to India or not. I can tell you, there were hue and cry. How come India will have transit? India will pass through Bangladesh, and it was something like a crime. But today, you see, Bangladesh has opened everything. We are not facing any serious security challenges, but the way it has been perceived. So this has changed. I think we have to change our mindset. We have to find out how to mitigate and take the security to the different side and manage it and make some space for the trade, commerce, and integration. Bangladesh and India is having energy connectivity, and this connectivity is still on 600 megawatt. One of the day I said, some of the ambassador of India, I said, why 600? It should be more than few thousand. We should connect the Nepal, we should connect the Bhutan, but unfortunately it is not, because India itself import electricity. And as far as the per capita energy consumption in this region, in the BVI region, we are one of the least in the world. But we have huge potential, but unfortunately we can't make it. So I think let India, which is the most dominant player, we all are the Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, we all are player, but I understand that our capacity is far more less than India. So India has to take the leading role, how it can take care of its security, vis-a-vis how it can integrate the region, not compromising its traditional security. With that, I would like to thank everybody.
Thank you, General Rahman. And of course, I would like to add here that in this year, which is the 50th anniversary of the Liberation War, we actually do feel proud to see Bangladesh performing so well, the economy performing so well, especially in certain sectors. And if India is not performing as well in those sectors, it's a good thing, because it should give us some incentive to try to do better. So it really makes us feel very proud. And the point that you gave about the lack of integration among the regional countries there in the area that we are talking about, getting affected by the suspicion and rivalries with extra regional powers. We should try to get over that. And as you rightly said, if there's a spirit of compromise, give and take, this thing can be better. And of course, all this can only happen if we talk about it, if we meet in forums like this, and of course, more formal forums also. And thank you so much. And now I will request General Binod Basner to give his presentation.
Thank you, General Katoch. So it's pleasing to be part of the online discussion this morning with such prominent speakers. Well, the countries in South Asia are more interconnected now, more interdependent, not just with the borders, but with civilization, strong culture, history, political economy, and the political security interests. So I would like to thank the NICE and the USI India for organizing this roundtable. So my discussion this morning will focus on the strategic and conceptual aspects of border management of India and Nepal. So let me acknowledge 5 bullets. First is the geopolitical environment is variable, and the world focus is on the Indo-Pacific region. So the IPR is the precedence, and South Asia is ever-changing. So national security and regional security comes as a priority in the changing times and circumstances. Second, if South Asia is more strategic, for the largest economies in the second half of the 21st century. Third, the risk of regional polarization, the stability of foreign policy amid political chaos, and competition creating an environment is challenge and vulnerability. So Indo-Sino dilemma in the Himalayas are evidences to protect Nepal's sovereigns along China borders, which lies on the central sub-region. So these incidents are linked with the geostrategic issues for long-term interests of great powers through battles are subsiding, but war endures. So small nations like Nepal in the changing Himalayan dynamics must be extra cautious on the geostrategic concepts that comes about by powerful nations and the strategic impacts that brings about, and more importantly, this geostrategic reality. So let me highlight a few strategic happenings that has the strategic consequences. One is Nepal has witnessed the Maoist-communist armed struggle that ended with a negotiated political settlement. And the other is Nepal's alterations to federal, secular, and a republic came with the 2015 constitutions, which has promulgated by the majority of the legislatures, but then they possess ownership by the Madhesis, Janjatis, and the Thars. And the other is the anti-Indian oratory of politics of convenience and conspiracy is also part of the politics in Nepal. So these issues have been part of one, the domestic nationalism that the most nations are thriving forward with, and of course, two, the geopolitical transformations in South Asia, and three, unwanted advantages for state and non-state actors' activities like illegal migration, narcotics dealing, smuggling, and others leading to questions of security. Now, let me examine some doctrinal imperatives. One is the changed geography. The Himalayas and south of the Himalayas are formidably changed, and it is more accessible due to variations of environment, infrastructure development, and political interests and political will. The economic assistance and military engagements are assisting for political influence and strategic interests, like the CPEC, the BRI, and the Himalayan Multidimensional Connectivity Network, and the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, and Bangladesh-China-India-Myanmar Economic Corridor. So this positions China's firmness and a will to be a bridge to the Indian Ocean. 80% of China's energy resources go through the Malacca Strait. So second is the diverse geopolitical situation. So with the argument of the Himalayan regions of being even more significant, our geopolitical narratives can be assumed in the power competition, cooperations, and now confrontations between China and India in South Asia and the Himalayan region. Third is the great power rivalry is shifting in our part of the world. So the US national security policies, the US-China's rivalry are emerging in our region. So the border boundaries adjoining China along the Himalayas will therefore continue to be a matter of concerns to both China and India and the 5 nations that borders both big powers, including Nepal. Third, the geopolitical compulsions is visible. So values-based dimensions is also in roles. Democracy versus totalitarianism, communism is underway. Economy will continue to remain as a tool of national power. Military threats are more visible than before. Like the chief of the Indian Army, General Narawane said, I quote, "The region's security environment is characterized by Chinese belligerence in the Indo-Pacific, the rising footprints of China in India's neighborhood, and its attempts to unilaterally alter the status quo along our disputed borders have created an environment of confrontation and mutual distrust," unquote. So he suggests to increase connectivity in the northeast and neighboring countries to balance China's growing influence. Indication China of making attempts to change the status quo. So fourth is the resource competition, and lastly is the weak governance system in Nepal. So with these strategic surroundings, the Nepal and India border is more sensitive than when the concepts of open border began after 1950s treaty. Today, the 145 land-based nations around the world, excluding the 50 islands and countries, 26% of 195 countries in the world employ three major international border types. Like 18 to 14% have open borders, 45 have regulated borders, controlled borders, and 42 nations, like 22%, have 45 borders. So border types can be classified into soft, hard, and smart borders. Soft borders include open and regulated and controlled frontiers. Hard borders, referred to as fortified borders, include wire-fenced borders, wire-fenced and walled borders. And smart borders refers to informations and communication technologies that enable deterrorized border controls. These are including biometric database and information sharing systems. So let me conclude. So one of the fundamentals of Nepal-India relations is politics of space, with political interest, economy as a priority, and security leverages for stability. There is also a shift in people's perception. Two, different forms of domestic nationalisms has been a trend in politics, with ethnic nationalism, civic nationalism, cultural nationalism, religious nationalism, and anti-India oratory. Third, incidents in the Himalayan region happens with an intent. Indications hint on possibilities. Nepal will have to look into the occurrences in the Himalayas with possibilities of long-term strategic impacts in the southern, east, and west borders. Four, Nepal must be very cautious with vital grounds that would assist heavy armaments maneuvering that are viability for Indo-China confront. Small nations on the Himalayan arc are vulnerable. Militarily important grounds along the borders need to be identified and well protected today before controversy erupts. Nepal, to safeguard its borders, will be like an insurance in the years to come. Fifth, protecting Nepal's borders, land, air, and waterways from illegal movements of weapons, drugs, contraband, and people or migrations, while promoting lawful entry and exit, in essentials for internal and security of both Nepal's immediate neighbors, economic prosperity and national sovereignty. A review and revisiting the state of border management is of great necessity. There requires to be a border management system in place with Nepal to adopt a separate border security force with professionals, personnel, technology, resource, and critical security improvements to secure and manage our borders for long-term with immediate plans for execution. Today's model and modalities will not serve our interests, nor will it address security concerns. Sixth is the borders can be both open and secure. Open to allow for a cross-border flow of legitimate trade and commerce that is critical to Nepal, and secure in the sense that the national security interests of states are protected. So the border security force must be committed to achieving a balance between the needs to maintain security interests, cross-border threats, and freedom of movement for persons, goods, services, and commerce. So amid an upheaval of unexpected situations as Nepal, the hurricanes of unreasonable behaviors by stakeholders, when fortune strikes against us Nepalese, Nepal will have to remain unmoved, knowing that finally all will be well. One, creating a safer border environment. Two, making travel faster and the border safer. Three, standardized secure identification. And fourth, collaborations with states and local law enforcement. So lastly, Nepal's interest and Nepal's territorial integrity. Sovereignty comes first and foremost. Nepal today, with the major alterations in political, social, culture, system, and governments, to find out how she has stood proud to date with the vibrant policies and the politics and administration system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Bastner. And I'm sure everybody has benefited from your presentation. As I can, make out from your presentation, or the first thought that comes to me is that, in all these deliberations, when we talk of BBIN and we want to come to a common platform for meeting our economic interests for integration, the issue of sovereignty weighs on everybody's mind. And sovereignty is such a concept that nobody wants to lose any part of it, even if it is in return for certain economic gains. What you mentioned about borders, soft borders, hard borders, smart borders. So how we manage our borders can also give a big fillip to the sort of integration that we are seeking. For example, the border between India and Myanmar. It's a very odd border. It falls in all these three zones. It is soft, it is hard, it is not so smart as yet, because smartness in terms of modern communications or IT and such things are not there to that extent. But it is soft and hard at the same time, because from the time of the British, we had this, the border trading regime where because the communities were common on both sides of the borders, a person was permitted to carry for trade a head load across. So as much as he could carry, so it would roughly be about 30 to 40 kgs. He can carry across up to a distance of about 10 kilometers without any customs, without any duties or anything. So it has helped those communities. It is soft to, the border is soft to that extent, but nevertheless, that form of border has, you can say, it does not help to make the border secure from insurgencies and these sort of movements. So whenever we talk of cross-border connectivity, the issues of security of the borders and at the same time the sovereignty of the countries is important. Now I will, has Mr. Lobsang Dorji joined? Anybody from NICE who can?
No, sir.
So we cannot see him as of now.
Okay. So then we are, going to miss a speaker from Bhutan, who would have given the Bhutanese perspective. And I will just say a few words about that, because I'm sure the thing that it came out earlier also, which is very evident, is that this the motor, the MVA, we call it a stumbling block, but we must understand Bhutan's, its core values, its interests, that why it does not want to be part of that. And maybe one of the reasons is that it does not really gain too much from this sort of agreement. That could be also a reason. If it was to gain a lot, maybe there would be some compromise. And if they have, problems about environmental damage, then there can be ways and means to have more stringent norms of emission of the vehicles which say move to and fro to help that. We'll now go on to the answer the questions. There are some which have come from the audience and a few that I will have to ask. Firstly, I will, ask some questions which have come from the audience. There's one from Mr. Alok Bansal. I think Alok is from the India Foundation, if he is the same Alok. And he's asked a question which I am not very clear about, but I'm sure either Ambassador Shoban or General Rahman will be able to answer that. He's asked, what was the route of the Dhaka Kunming roadshow? So I'm not very clear about the question, but if it's clearer to you, I'd request you to answer them. Either one of you or both of you. He's asked, what was the route of the Dhaka Kunming roadshow? Over to you, sir. Ambassador Shoban first.
I think probably General Abdul Rahman is better qualified to answer this, but my recollection of this was it started in Kunming. It went through Myanmar into the Indian Northeast, then into Bangladesh, and ended up in Calcutta or Kolkata. I think that was the route. The exact alignment of the route, I don't recollect. General Rahman, over to you.
Sir, you are perfectly right, sir. It started from Kolkata, sir, went through Dhaka, and then it went to the Myanmar, and finally there is a border between China and Myanmar. I visited the border also. I exactly can't remember right now the name. If I can recollect, I'll definitely share it. I visited the border also. So the route was very clear. The route was but there are problems. It was not a very smooth road, but the effort was made. And it was back in 2013, if I'm right. And there had been a lot of progress, and the initiative was almost close to track 2 level. And it was about to be, there was a scheduled meeting of the 4 countries in Cox's Bazar of Bangladesh, but somehow or other, it was scheduled in 2014, but somehow or other, at the last moment, the meeting was postponed. And then thereafter, I saw no progress about the, BCIBC.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next question is from Nina, who asked that what are the responsibilities and roles of the northeastern states of India in mitigating or moving forward this emerging relationship? And I will request General KJ Singh if he can give some views on that, because probably if we can really come to a concrete thing that what are the northeastern states expected to do, or maybe even I would say even West Bengal. As we, as it was brought out earlier, that they are the states who are major beneficiaries out of, a thing like a MBA. So what are their responsibilities in mitigating this relationship? And after General KJ Singh has spoken, I would request any of the speakers from Bangladesh, if they can say that what do they expect that these states should be doing. So over to General KJ Singh.
Thank you, General Katoch, and very wonderful question. I think, Naina, you have asked this question. A very appropriate question. The problem is there is a historical kind of a hesitancy. The headquarters of Eastern Command till about 62 was it was located at Lucknow, and India thought that East is where Lucknow is. So it shifted to Kolkata, and now there is a department, there is a Northeastern Council. They make their own plans. Those are funded also. There are priority projects also. But the interministerial coordination is a challenge. This is the benign portion of my reply. Now let me do a lamenting portion of my response also. Because this is an academic seminar and we should speak frankly and bring out issues which have implications. Within Northeast, there is the core, which is the 7 states, and then there is a linkage to West Bengal. Now, West Bengal is a more advanced, more modern kind of a state. So it's looking for linkages, but not in a way that it is ideally desirable. It has to take greater ownership and it has to steer the process. Now, even if you look at the Siliguri corridor, Siliguri is located in northern Bengal. Now, northern Bengal is traditionally neglected by West Bengal because the focus of West Bengal is in Kolkata and it stops well short of Dinajpur. It doesn't reach Dinajpur in any case. So here this formulation of North Bengal, which has Darjeeling or Gurkha Hill Council, it has got some
sort of, I wouldn't say insurgency, but some sort of kind of movement which is now being resolved in Kamtapur, Rajabangshis and Kuch Bihar area. So there are these Duars plains where tea labor lives. So there are conflicting expectations and requirements. They are not getting, in my perception, fully addressed in the formulation. And I have even once written article, more than once, and I have wondered that should North Bengal be a separate union territory, like Ladakh, which is now, and that will probably steer this process forward. But currently it cannot happen. It has got caught in some internal politics and it is seen in a very different connotation. When I wrote this article last year, both the parties which fought the election thought that through North Bengal, they'll win the West Bengal. Well, election results have done something different and now it can't happen. But in longer time frame, West Bengal should look at possibility of either giving North Bengal greater autonomy or making a union territory out of it. And then the ownership of this will become better. So I've been very frank. I've given you the benign official portion and also give you some laments which are in the environment. Thank you. I hope I have answered the question.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, General KJ. And so, Ambassador Subhan sir, can you, anything from your side on these issues?
Yes, I'd like to go back to the genesis of BBIN. The whole idea behind BBIN, because after all, we have SAARC, we have, as General Rahman mentioned, we also have BIMSTEC, we also have the Bay of Bengal initiative, the Big B initiative. So we have BCIM. So what was really the rationale behind BBIN when we conceived this idea? It was to engage in project-specific cooperation. We would identify specific projects, whether it was in the energy sector, whether it was related to connectivity, and we would then be able to do projects which might otherwise not have taken place. Now, as I have mentioned, we have seen significant progress bilaterally on projects between Bangladesh and India. The challenge is to bring Nepal and Bhutan into this process. Similarly, the problem in the case of the Indian Northeast has been, and I've attended 2 annual conferences organized by the Ministry of Northeast Affairs as a guest speaker, has been the fact that at the end of the day, all projects need to go through an approval process in Delhi. I was personally involved while in the government. After retiring as Foreign Secretary, I was chairman of the Board of Investment. We developed this cross-border project to set up a fertilizer plant in Sylhet using limestone from Meghalaya. This project, the gestation period extended to some 3 to 4 years because it required the approval of Delhi. The state government was quite willing to move forward, but the whole process was delayed. Therefore, I think the point which General Singh made was a valid point, that we need to perhaps provide greater autonomy to the Indian Northeast to move forward on specific projects. We have seen, for example, even now, one of the barriers in terms of trade between Bangladesh and the Indian Northeast has been the testing and certification process. Here, the Northeastern governments do not have the authority to do the testing and certification. This has to be done through Delhi, and this has also proved to be a bottleneck to both trade as well as investment. So I would say that, yes, if we want to see results, we need to give greater flexibility, certainly to the Northeast. But let me also very briefly address a key issue in terms of energy cooperation involving the 4 BBIN countries. If we are, for example, to do a big hydroelectric power project with Nepal or with Bhutan, Bangladesh is very keen to do that. It raises the issue whether how do we finance these projects? Can we bring in multilateral financing or foreign investment to do these projects? Because this too in the past has been a stumbling block. India has had reservations about involving foreign investment in energy projects involving Nepal and Bhutan. There have been reservations about World Bank and ADB financing in such projects. So these are issues, frankly, where we need to see India being more forthcoming and responsive in allowing projects involving both Nepal and Bhutan in one case, and projects involving the Indian Northeast to move forward. Thank you. I think.
Thank you, Ambassador. And unfortunately, we have nobody from Bhutan who could give us his view. But can I request General Basniak, this particular point that the ambassador made, that bilaterally we are able to, move forward. But when we try to get all 4 on board, then there are problems which arise. So he's mentioned, use the word that there is a challenge in bringing Nepal and Bhutan on board onto certain, projects. So anything you would like to say on that?
Well, Nepal, in particularly like Nepal being sensitive about issues relating to energy. So it is the management of resources that Nepal needs to not just get it to India, but to get it to the third world. Like when Bangladesh usually brings out, like when I was in visit in Dhaka also, they usually bring out issues of energy being a resource that we all can share. So the importance, I think it is the importance of the trilateral agreement that has to come forth for sharing the opportunities that every nation has, whether you are landlocked or whether you are seaborne or whatever. So I think the reservations, even in Nepal, that you find in common, is trying to use its resources so that Nepal benefits economically and the region. So, like Nepal being a part of sub-regional organizations where they can be more exposed to the outer world, though it is surrounded by India, is what is in the minds of people. So, if BBIN could move forward with trilateral agreements, utilizing all the assets or the strong points of, let's say, Nepal or Bhutan. I mean, Bhutan has been, using its resources to significance, but with certain compromises. But I don't think Nepal's, the population in Nepal would really like to go into that dynamics. But definitely Nepal would like to use its resources as fast as possible with trilateral agreements, and would help BBN, like as Ambassador Farooq brought out. I mean, it is a project specific, so that this particular BBN helps the regional blocs move forward. Whether it is Act-East policy for India, or whether it is BIMSTEC, or whether it is SAARC, so I would stress on the fact that India has to look into giving opportunities and using the resources available for landlocked countries, so that trilateral agreements are important to that.
Sir, can I just say a few words?
I would also like to say after you say, sir.
Okay. First, Jal Rahman and then Jalukej.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. The point is about the energy, so I thought that a little bit of information would be quite beneficial. But before that, let me say that the name of the China-India border that we've been talking about, where it terminated, it was Ruli border. Ruli border, which is in the Yunnan province of China. Now, about the energy cooperation, trilateral agreement on the energy cooperation. You see, energy cooperation is one of the cooperation which is so meaningful and so important, but yet least, problem related to security, if we talk at all about security, in terms of traditional and non-traditional. It is the electricity produced from one country, passes through a transmission line to another country or third country. I'm just giving a very layman, example, but very essential example. Where is our concern should be? You see, Bangladesh imports 500 megawatt of power from India using the Baharampur-Bhelamara area of the north. And India, on the other hand, imports almost 80% of the total energy produced by Bhutan, which produces roughly around 10,000 megawatt of power. And it has, although capacity of about 30,000, but it produces around 10,000. And domestic consumption is very less, it's about 2,000. Rest, all 8,000 goes to India. Now, India and Bhutan has a transmission line already existing. And on the other hand, Bangladesh and India also have a transmission line. I was asked a question by one of the diplomats of Bhutan, that why can't Bangladesh utilize the transmission line in India and get the powers or energy from Bhutan to Bangladesh? So you see, if we talk about this particular aspect, that there are potential of more energy production by the Bhutan. There are an existing, transmission line. Maybe we have to enhance the capacity, but there is existing transmission line. And Bangladesh is also in dire need of, electricity as good as like India. So what kind of security really concerns to make a trilateral agreement in energy cooperation between Bhutan, India and Bangladesh? I will not talk about Nepal, India, Bangladesh, because there are questions, because Nepal is still not in a state of producing a quantity of energy, hydro energy, which it can supply, because it involves a huge amount of financial support. But in this regards also, our government has already declared that Bangladesh will try to contribute as much as possible it can to develop the hydro potential of Nepal, and for maximizing the benefit amongst the BBN countries. So, if my request to the concerned who approves or the policymakers, that if there is one effort made successful in connecting Bhutan to Bangladesh using the existing transmission line of India and get the electricity or power supply from Bhutan to Bangladesh, I think it will make a huge sense and it will give a true flavor of a sub-regional cooperation, which we had been desperately, expecting and looking for. Thank you, sir.
Firstly, I would endorse most of what is being said by General, but I would like to qualify it with 2-3 caveats. One is that energy security is, here we are looking at 2 upper riparian states, essentially Bhutan and Nepal, and India is the middle riparian, and then there is a lower riparian state, Bangladesh. So even when we do agreements with Nepal, there are issues because we want to do energy as well as flood control. And Nepal wants to leverage the fact that it is not able to use that water. It hardly can use it for irrigation. Similarly, Bhutan. So it would like to leverage it to the maximum extent possible. Now, as we know that hydroelectric projects in these ecosystems, which are very fragile, need tremendous amount of clearance because they are in seismic zones also. Nepal has had earthquakes, Sikkim has got earthquakes, and even within India, I am telling you, sir, allow me to submit to you, to get a clearance for this kind of project is not easy. We've had history of Tehri Dam and all these kind of issues. Our ecological ministries, I can only give them a medal for their bureaucratic hurdles that they put in. Even our sensitive projects in border areas don't get environmental clearance so easily. So there are issues. But I do concede your point that as far as power grid is concerned, we should share it. We should develop dedicated power grids. Why not? That's a wonderful concept, sir. I also agree that India must be alive to these sensitivities, allow more funding, and if it is possible to exploit more hydroelectric potential of Bhutan, we should do it. But one catch which I always leave in interaction with Bhutan, though Bhutanese speaker is Lobsang Dorji is not here, but I consider myself half Bhutanese because my corps had the responsibility to look after the defense of Bhutan also. So allow me to submit to you that Bhutan's overall policy in all dimensions, all facets, is governed by high impact, low engagement. It wants to get maximum value, like in tourism. It wants to have finite number of tourists paying heavy premium, but it doesn't want to spoil its ecosystem. It wants to preserve it. That is their concept. Even India has not been able to prevail on that because Bhutan is not agreeing to endorse this motor vehicle agreement. Bhutan has got, and today Bhutan is a democracy. When this agreement had gone to the parliament, the upper house opposition sat over it. They didn't pass it. Yeah. So it is not that easy. But I do take all your points, and I in part I agree with you. But I have also voiced the concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jal KJ. And all the panelists have given their views on this particular matter, and it mostly, in a large part, answers 2 questions which were from 2 of the participants. That is from Subodh Chandra and from Tekraj Koirala, where both of them, using maybe a little bit of different language, had asked that why can't we get better integrated? What are the problems? And because this is a point which was on everybody's mind, because this is obviously something which, to a layman, layman or even a students, some of them are students from the South Asian University, it very clearly comes out that cooperation and integration will bring in prosperity. So why are we not able to do it? And of course, what all the 4 speakers have said, to a large measure answers this question. The Tekraj Koirala had also asked that if we exclude Bhutan, will things become better? But that, I think, if somebody from Bhutan had been there, we would be able to take on that question. And in any case, Bhutan's objection, even to the MBA, they've said that from our side, we have no problem, you carry on with it. So even if Bhutan is not, it dilutes the, the concept of BBIN. If Bhutan does not, if any of the countries does not come on board any of the initiatives. But as far as the MBA is concerned, it does not really, hamper it too much. Right? That is my view. And now I will, there are no more questions from the participants. So I have some questions. And I will ask these, and I will, Ambassador Sovan, I will ask you the first question. India is a dominant member of BBIN, as is, as it is in SAARC. And in SAARC, that has proved to be a challenge because there are others which are not very happy with their dominance. And in BBIN, such counterbalancing influence is even lesser. And India's dominance in BBIN, again to a layman, appears more pronounced. Is this counterbalancing required? Why is it required? And is such a counterbalancing a stumbling block or a facilitator to cooperation? Thank you, Ambassador. Over to you.
Well, I can only speak, General, from my own experience. I believe when we conceived of this idea of BBIN initially as the growth quadrangle, the central theme underlying the cooperation, as I mentioned, was we should look forward to doing specific projects linking the four countries. One very important project, which we had initially discussed and which was mooted by the Asian Development Bank, was to adopt the Mekong Delta model and go in for basin-wide cooperation. As you know, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, we share common water resources. Nepal, Bhutan, as you mentioned, is the upper riparian. India is in the middle, and we are the lower riparian. This basin-wide cooperation, I think, could offer enormous benefits in terms of the optimum utilization of the water resources. Water, as we know, is going to be one of the major, shall I say, challenges in the coming decade. And to me, the key to BBIN cooperation is this basin-wide cooperation among the four BBIN countries. In order, frankly, for this to materialize, we need the support and cooperation and agreement of India. I had also made a reference in my comments to India's reservations about multilateral investments in BBIN projects, including reservations about foreign direct investment in BBIN projects. So as of now, India is geographically, as well as in terms of its own intrinsic strength and size, is the country that really determines the intensity, the pace, and the nature of the cooperation within the BBIN framework. And whereas India has been quite willing to see bilateral cooperation move forward, a lot of India's interests have been addressed, particularly by Bangladesh in the area of connectivity. We need to see more progress involving Nepal and Bhutan so that BBIN is something which benefits all the four countries. For Bangladesh, it is very important that we would like to see improved connectivity for Nepal and Bhutan through India to Bangladesh. I think that is, we see that as an intrinsic part of the connectivity process. So the ball really on so many different issues rests in the court of India. And it is really up to India to decide how best it would like to proceed in these matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And now my next question, and I would be asking this question from General KJ Singh, General Rahman, and General Basnet. And, like General Rahman said, all three army people or armed forces people, and we always think in terms of very quick solutions and very quick, resolution of issues. So I'm sure, so if I put one question, it will, it can be answered by all of you in context of your respective countries. If Bhutan had been there, I would have asked the same question of them. Or if somebody from Bhutan who had been from the security field, because we had an academic today actually, I would have asked him the same thing. And after we have answered these questions, the three speakers have answered, I will thereafter request all the panelists, if they want to add on anything in 1 minute, which they might have missed out earlier or which has come to their mind now, I will give them time, 1 or 2 minutes for that. And thereafter, I will give my very brief concluding remarks. So the question, which actually is through all three, is that national security issues are increasingly becoming an area of major concern, which can put a brake on regional or sub-regional integration, as we are seeing maybe here and in other parts of the world also. What national security issues do the BBIN countries have which slowed down its development, the development of the BBIN? And you can, give out both internal national security issues or external national security issues. So over to General KJs.
Thank you, Katoch. This is a very intelligent and difficult question to answer. See, sounds very simple, but it has got a lot of layers and layers within it. So if you start from the internal side, India has challenges in terms of resolving its insurgencies which are in Northeast. Now here I'd like to place on record actually my salute and appreciation for Bangladesh, for the, especially in particularly to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Because if insurgencies in India are finding resolution today, a large measure of that is because Bangladesh stopped giving shelter to the insurgents who were hiding there. Anup Chetia and Anthony Shimrang, the weapon organizer of NSC and IM, was living there. And it was during the time of Begum Khalida and others that he had Zia or PM Zia, or President Zia, they were there. So Bangladesh is a very stabilizing influence for us. And I always say that India must remain very sensitive to Bangladesh's concerns, because Bangladesh does so much for us that we should go extra mile. That is what I always recommend in India. To that extent, I get disappointed sometimes when a thing like Farakka barrage and enhancing water from Teesta to flush out the silt which gets into Delta, like what Ambassador Subhan was trying to articulate, doesn't receive the kind of cooperation and assistance which it should receive. That's because of typical problems of federal states and West Bengal now having the problems. But I hope in better times we are able to take up these, and we continue to have excellent relations with Bangladesh, which helps us to redress our internal security challenges. There are challenges of dealing with narco-terrorism, gun running, and smuggling of wildlife products. In this, our connectivity in these is more with Myanmar. And because these rings operate through Myanmar, through the Yunnan province, Kunming, Ruili, what was being referred by General, he was referring to those areas. So that is another issue which needs to be taken up. As regards borders, General Bisnath has highlighted, the borders with Bangladesh are semi-hardened, and there the issue is not really of any infiltration of any armed people. It is basically because of cattle smuggling and also because of a certain amount of demographic challenges which get thrown up. But the way Bangladesh economy is taking up, I think even if it may sound lighthearted, we'll have to, or Bangladesh will have to start looking that, but people from India don't start going there, because after all, economic hubs attract outside population. So we have to, but the borders are well guarded with Bangladesh. We have to make them smarter. We have to cooperate a little more on that. Our borders with Nepal and Bhutan are open. They need to remain open. With Nepal, we have that Ma Roti Ka Rishta, ya Beti Roti Ka Rishta, as they say, marriages take place and livelihood is common, and Tarai region draws a lot of linkages on this side. So borders should remain open, but they should become smart with surveillance, because after all, there have been issues in Bhutan of Bhuplis, of people who were settled there. There have been issues of, we had to launch an operation in borders of Bhutan to flush out terrorists. We had to do that because Bodos and other terrorists used to take shelter there. And overarching to the entire thing is the shadow of dragon. How much space you will allow to China, and will you accommodate sensitivities of India? That remains the overarching question. That has to be addressed by each of us. Nobody is against China, but China has its own interests. And if they are going to be in a zero-sum mode, after all, people are saying that in Ladakh, China came to teach India a lesson and show India its place and to rub India's nose. So then India is not a country which will allow its nose to be rubbed so easily. It's a nation which is going to soon become the most populated nation in a decade or two. It's got young, aspiring population. Its economy may be down because of pandemic, but it is surely going to bounce back. So to have such vision that you will teach a lesson to such a country and keep it capped may not be a fair lesson to teach. It is a better lesson to teach that we have a win-win syndrome. We all can win. We all can cooperate. We all can share prosperity, and we can work in that mode. With that, I hope I have partially, because no question can get answered for me. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, General KJ. And General Abdul Rahman, from your point of view on the same issue, of course.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Jan Singh for acknowledging the contribution of Bangladesh in not sharing any kind of, or not giving any kind of space to the insurgents. It is not only for the case of India, it is also for the case of Myanmar also. Our government has specifically and very loudly said that our soil will not be allowed for any foreign insurgents or foreign terrorists. Bottom line is a zero tolerance. And I bear the witness, being a military general. And it is not only that our government has said, our government has meant it, frankly speaking, and trust me. So this is one of the major, indication from our government to our neighbors about our attitude, about our desire of relationship with our neighbors. Our country does now believe very strongly that we have to prosper and we have to prosper together. Just giving one example, that 226 billion US dollar can be earned if we can manage the energy within this sub-region. It's not a matter of joke. It's a huge, figure for the development. Now, second thing that I would like to say is that is pathetic from my side. That somewhere we had SAARC, and then because of this, the question that Mr. Chair has asked, that is the national security is becoming dominant and taking over the place over the development. To some extent, I think it is true. Because SAARC, with a lot of hope and aspiration, some say that it is already dead, some say it is already in ICU, it is in life support, but still it is alive. But then when we saw it's not really functioning as we expected, then the Ambassador Farukh Subhan sir has said how the concept of BBIN developed. And then within the BBIN, you see, then suddenly motor vehicle agreement, when it has not been ratified by Bhutan, there has been noise or recommendation, opinion, can we delete B and make it only BIN? So you see, we are shortening the partners. So from SAARC to BBIN, from BBIN now we are thinking of BIN, Bangladesh, India, Nepal. So is the case with BCIMC. So BCIMC, Bangladesh, China, Myanmar, India. So when there were problem object or there was slowed down, initiative from the India, then there were proposal came, can we discard the I? Can we make it BCM, Bangladesh, China, Myanmar Economic Corridor? You see, so things are not really, it does not really go as we really dreamed so at the beginning. And to be very honest, yes, I strongly believe at times the national security which is being developed, which is being perceived, which is being planned by your respective country, it has lot of impact on the regional, economic integration. Now here I would like to bring one point where, being a military man, I will say we are very free and frank. This China syndrome is a problem and it will remain a problem. Now what happened here, the larger partners, the bigger partners, I would rather suggest that they should discuss more of common interest than disagreement or differences. But we see we are more concerned about the differences than the common issues. If we emphasize on the common issues of common interest with win-win situation, gradually perhaps at one point of time we can mitigate or minimize at least the security issues which are bothering to some of the countries. And here I must say that country like Bangladesh, or for that Nepal, or Sri Lanka, or Bhutan, frankly speaking, we are sandwiched between China and India. If we give some preferences to China, India becomes very unhappy. Next day we give some preference to China, India, China becomes unhappy. Where we should go? But we are open for everybody. Everybody is our friend. Can we discard China? No, it's impossible. Can we say that no India, because we can't? And we always say that you can choose your partner, but you cannot choose your neighbor. We have to live with the neighbors. The India is our neighbor. We have to live with India. And in this current world, can not only Bangladesh, can any country really discard China? Can America itself discard China, which is having so much of tussles? The reality is that we don't know what we really want. We have to make a decision that we really want an economic emancipation and development of the country and the people. If it is so, I can bet the security issues can be handled. Security issues can be handled. At times, we over-securitize the security issues. This is what is my personal opinion. Bangladesh is a classical example. How it can open its door for economic development and for giving support to the regional countries or the neighboring countries, is still maintaining its national security, both traditional and non-traditional. So I would say that if my words are taken by the policymaker, that if China and India become a little more closer than apart, I think much of the problem of the entire, not only the BBI region, the entire region of South Asian region can be, changed. The whole picture will change. 21st century is Asian century. Asia has the largest, young manpower. Asia is the fastest growing economy of the world. All this, at times become very, disappointing, that probably this situation, this scenario will not remain for long. It will change. It will change. If our existing senior citizens does not take a right decision today, perhaps we will leave a darker future for our future generation. This is the time that we should catch. The train will leave exactly at 7 o'clock. If it is scheduled, it will not leave at 1 past 7. So we have to board into the train at 7 o'clock. There is no point coming to the railway station to board in at 1 past 7. So I think this is the right time. Let's analyze our security, national security, and then compromise a little bit or mitigate this in the security issues, or resolve the security issues in some other way, and make space for the economic development, economic integration, cooperation, and work on the common issues, and let's deal the disagreements later. Mostly India and China, the two power of Asia. This is what I have to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, General Rahman. And now over to General Bastner. And of course, what General Rahman has said about living with neighbors, in the case of Nepal, it is maybe a little more, relevant and difficult also. So over to General Bastner.
Yeah, let me flip back to my presentations when I covered the doctrinal imperatives. One was a change to geography. Second one was a diverse geopolitical situation. The third was great power rivalry. The fourth was geopolitics compulsions, and the other one was the resource competition. So these are imperatives that is driving small nations and into complexities. And as General Rahman brought out, that this is the India, China now entering into the third sea confrontation is a dilemma, and but we have to live with it, and we have to find ways and solutions how we go about it. So let's just highlight two things on this, relating to national security. One is the resource competition. The hydropolitics is going to move even more than what it is today. It is being well observed, like how almost most of the river sources or the water sources come from Tibet. Like for South Asian, 7 of South Asian's greatest rivers is forming the largest rivers come from Tibet of China. And 46% of the world population depends upon rivers that have headwaters, including for Nepal, including the Ganges. So this is one thing that we really have to look forward to solving, both for fresh water, irrigation, and energy. So this is one side. And the second, the resources that brings about, let's say the China and India is the REM, the rare earth minerals like So these are other issues also, but let us not go deep into that. But and the second thing about is the security concerns. Like when I brought out the issue about Himalayan range having problems like from Arunachal Pradesh to Ladakh, it is not just related with confined in a certain area. So the whole Himalayan belt is going to have or going to face certain consequences on this. And for Nepal, when I talked about the border management, now the border management needs to be more or needs to be more thought of than what we really had in the existing system. Like for Nepal, lying in the 1400, let's say 40 kilometers and northeast in the Himalayas, and the geopolitical trends is that the north-south strategic connections is coming, being formed now. And the sensitivities in the northeast section of the disputed area, the Kalapani area in Nepal, which just came out a few months back and the Parliament of Nepal endorsed it as being part of Nepal's territory. And the other side is if you go to the northwest towards the Siliguri corridor or the Chicken Neck, is the district of Taplejung, which is just about 42 to 45 kilometers from the Chinese border. So these are sensitivities of, that's why when I brought out the issue of border, we were talking about the military maneuvering and how Nepal could, or other, let's say, nations could assist in still maybe being a buffer, which we had remained. So these are issues of national security. And for Nepal, I see like two choices. One is either invest, which is a question, on security capabilities. Okay, getting the army the most modern, or getting the security agencies involved in the security matters, and with an argument of financial constraints. Second is finding a political and diplomatic resolution. Like I remember in 1975, King Birendra brought out a proposal of a zone of peace during his coronation, which was endorsed by quite a few countries, but was not able to materialize. So these type of resolutions may be things that I will look into for national security and regional security, so that we get integrated, economically integrated, so that we use our resources for the benefits of the people of South Asia.
Thank you so much, General Basnet. Now we are into the last about 8 minutes of our session. And like I mentioned, I will request, in case any of the the panelists has to just take 1 minute, 30 seconds, 1 minute to say, give any message. So I'll request you to stick to that timing. Ambassador Shobha.
Thank you, Chair. There's much that I would like to endorse in the comments just made by the other panelists, particularly my countryman, General Abdur Rahman. I think we are facing at the moment some very serious challenges in terms of the prevailing geopolitical environment. We have managed to go through nearly 2 hours without mentioning the COVID pandemic and the impact that this has had and is having and will continue to have on our economies. To me, this has further intensified the need for regional cooperation, sub-regional cooperation, indeed economic integration itself. What I what is going to be extremely important for all our countries in this very difficult environment is to attract foreign direct investment. Bangladesh has a plan, the Vision 2041 plan, which envisages during the next 20 years, something in the region of $250 billion of FDI. To me, this is going to be very difficult to achieve without improving our infrastructure. But without improving our infrastructure, as well as integrating our infrastructure, particularly our road and rail network in the region, extending it beyond to also connect with ASEAN and China and the subcontinent as a whole. So these are challenges which we have to face. I think General Rahman has articulated the importance for Bangladesh to maintain the best of relations with India and our neighbors, but at the same time also continue our cooperation with China. We frankly would like nothing better than to see some degree of reconciliation, if that is the right word, between India and China. That will be to the benefit of all the countries in the region. But we would like to be able to attract investment from globally in some very, I would say, important, critical infrastructure projects, connectivity projects, energy projects, as well as projects related to the development of our joint water resources. I think that is the challenge which we face, and I hope we can achieve it, whether it is through BBIN or other regional and sub-regional groupings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And General KJ Singh, 30 seconds now, because we are actually now running out of time. 30 seconds, anything you want to say?
Thank you, General Katoch. I just want to say that a couple of years back, Bhutan brought out an issue of gross domestic happiness. And a lot of people laughed. They said Bhutan has got nothing else to do, so it is talking of happiness. But today, gross national well-being has become indeed a key parameter for national security. And this region must look at these challenges, work together, and I would implore these nations to, while India is a bigger nation, but in your game of balancing, you can't always blame the bigger nation. You have to look at the sensitivity of that bigger nation also. So with this message that balance, you must balance, but balance with India's concern. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, General KJ. General Rahman, 30 seconds, please.
I'll take 25 seconds, sir.
Okay.
Since my teacher has already concluded, and I being a Bangladeshi, I don't have to, put anything else. So all that Mr. Francois has said, I fully support it, and I would just like to add only one recommendation in addition to what he said, is that I would recommend a cross-border steering committee may be instituted to facilitate the multilateral dialogue on how and what needs to be done to overcome the bottleneck, and it should be on a regular basis. This is what my last recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General. General Basnet, sir.
Yeah, since I was talking about the border issue, so creating a safer border security environment, I would like to stress on the things that I said. And we must have an integrated mechanisms of looking into the threats of like sharing of information, like apprehensions and interdictions of methods of migrations, and how to make like travels and safety, and the standardizing of secure identifications, so that, national identifications, so that we know particularly that threats within us is not used against other nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Bastian. And now I'll conclude by firstly thanking NICE for giving us this platform. I will thank the panelists who have been very erudite and very brief and to the point. And we are finishing almost dot on the clock. And I would just like to finish off by saying that for the BBIN initiative to achieve success, it is important to calibrate the speed and level of its ambitions. It must be recognized that even within the BBIN group, there are significant differences in terms of economic size and level of economic development, as we are all very well aware. Therefore, the political objectives and policy priorities of these countries might be quite different. And of course, this came out very, very clearly in the various presentations of the panelists. The long-term acceptability and success of the BBIN will depend on how well the concerns of its partner countries are taken up within the framework.
Thank you so much.
And of course, today we heard a lot about the concerns. Of course, we sorely missed the participant from Bhutan, because the Bhutanese concerns, we are aware of it by reading about it and things like that. But when a panelist comes and talks about it, it becomes that much more live. And of course, I'll end by saying that connectivity is the new global currency for growth and prosperity. And it secures both trade and energy lines. And, General Rahman brought out the amount of, I think, $226 billion he had mentioned just for energy. So it can really, really be of great help. And these energy lines for countries, they are so important, and we must make the best of our geographic advantages. We can't choose our neighbors, we can't change our geography, but we must make the best of our geographic advantages. It is 10:45 and we are dot on the clock. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for being part of this panel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Distinguished Chair, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of this session, we would like to express a sincere gratitude and thanks to the Chair for agreeing to chair and moderate the session today. Our sincere thanks also goes to all the speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, we must also mention our deep sense of appreciation for the audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live. Thank you for your valuable time and attention, and for making this session productive with your questions. Once again, we are truly honored to have you all with us today. Please do join us in the next session. Thank you.